Hello and welcome. I'm James Milan, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation I'm about to have with our two guests. Tom Miller is here with me in our studio, and Joshua Seftel we have managed to connect with from New York via FaceTime, which is perfect because we can thank science and engineering for the opportunity to talk to these guys today. And what they do currently is they are the creators of a web series and website that is affiliated under the umbrella of NOVA, and it is called The Secret Life of Scientists and Engineers. And I absolutely love the tagline. I want to start with that. The tagline is, "Where the lab coats come off." And I think that captures, I've seen some of what's on there, and it captures this blend of science and whimsy as well as art very, very well. But tell us a little bit to begin with, just where did this series come from? How did your respective journeys lead you to this point?
Josh will talk about it some, and it was actually his, he came up with the initial idea. The creation myth is very complicated. We went through several different ways of potentially presenting this kind of content, and eventually we came up with Secret Life. And the idea is that you're looking at scientists, technologists, engineers, people who the general world sometimes thinks were hit by lightning and that's how they got to be these brainiacs. But in fact, they're real people. And one way to present that is to have them talk about their work, but also to show the other things that they do in their lives. So we have had a professional wrestler who was also a biologist. We have had another biologist who was in the Miss America pageant. She actually won the talent competition for piano playing. So it's been really fun to be able to meet these people, to talk with them. It's fun for us. I mean, it's really interesting to learn their stories with the basis in STEM subjects and the kind of work that they do during their day job, but also to find out what does happen when the lab coats come off.
Yeah, that was really the spark. We were working on a film for MIT about cancer research. And in the process, I was meeting all these amazing people who were effectively working to cure cancer and making major breakthroughs. Some of them had won Nobel Prizes and other great prizes in the world of science. And at a certain point, I realized I have never heard of any of these people, and I don't know anything about them. They are not human to me in any way, yet I know all about people like Kim Kardashian. There's no way to avoid it. And I thought, well, what can we do to address this in some small way? How can we raise scientists to a similar level, to humanize them, to let people into their lives, to portray them in a way that is as compelling as they are as people? And that's what we strive to do, is to really humanize and portray them in a way that will grab people and say, like, wow, that's fascinating. What an interesting person, what an interesting life. And in the case of, younger audience members, we hope that they might say, oh, so that's what a scientist is. That's something that is interesting to me. And one of our hopes is that, some of our audience members who are younger might say, huh, that's interesting. I might want to pursue that myself. And that's our hope.
Yeah, certainly. You mentioned several times there about humanizing your guests, the subjects of your interviews, but by the same token, I also noticed that the touch points that you hit on were Paris Hilton and Kim Kardashian. So, in a sense, I'm sure you're not attempting to celebritize these folks necessarily, but it is interesting that the slate of folks that you have already had on your series really include quite a disparate number of talents in addition to their scientific pursuits. Why don't you just pick a couple of favorites and tell the audience a little bit more about a couple of your interviewees?
One of the people who was really so fantastic for us to get was Tom Schultz of the band Boston. Sold a gazillion records around the world. Records is what music used to be on, kids. And, is kind of a legendary rock god. And what was interesting was in that case, his secret life, many times the secret life is what someone does outside of science or engineering. In his case, the fact that he was a rock star was his main life, the main way that people know him. But he's also an MIT-trained engineer who was working at Polaroid while he was making his first album in his basement studio. And Tom was really excited about talking with us because he wanted to be able to talk about his engineering life. He always got to talk about his musical life. And one thing was cool about interviewing him, as Josh said, we're knowing that young people are watching this. We know for a fact, because we hear from them, that a lot of educators are using the series in the classroom, which warms our heart. But Tom Schultz in particular said that he wanted to make sure that he was representing both sides of himself. So even as we were interviewing him, he was wearing an MIT t-shirt and he was holding his Gibson guitar. So he had both sides of him represented there. And that was fantastic, so maybe people who know him through his music learned about something else. And also our series is a lot about what's possible. You can love music and love science. You can be a professional wrestler and be a biologist. All of these things that maybe people think are contradictions, they're really not contradictions. So that's one of the key things that we like to present on the series.
Yeah, and Josh, I did notice that a lot of the times that combination that Tom was just referring to of attributes in your guests, obviously they're steeped in the STEM areas, but then they are artists or creative people in a number of instances, dancers, slam poetry, contributor, etc. Is that something you actively seek out, that combining the arts and the sciences, a place where people traditionally think that there's an either or going on there in their lives?
Yeah, I'm part of the ethos of the series is that number one, we want to surprise people, and we want to entertain them, and also we, for us, part of the concept is that we don't just want to preach to the choir. We don't just want people who love science to watch this series. We know we're going to get those people. We want people who might be professional wrestling fans who didn't know that they were interested in science and didn't know that one of their favorite wrestlers happened to also be a scientist. So that's part of the philosophy too, is that every week we try to portray a different person who comes from a different world. And in the process of presenting them, we hope that we bring in some of their fans. For instance, with Tom Scholes, we brought in a lot of classic rock fans, and a lot of them probably didn't know that Tom Scholes was an engineer. And they learned that, and they learned a little about engineering, and that's our hope, is that we're constantly expanding and broadening the tent and bringing new people into it, and exposing them to stories about science and scientists. So that's a lot of fun.
Is there anything about presenting yourself to the public through that medium that has dictated or influenced how you structure what you do?
The new media is such a great area to work in, because we have flexibility. We can make the films as long or as short as we want. Some of our films are 30 seconds long. For instance, we have a film where we interview a scientist named Jim Gates, who's a string theorist, and we ask him, explain string theory in 30 seconds. And the film is 30 seconds long, and he explains string theory. And it's a lot of fun to watch. And so playing with this new medium, playing in the new media area is just a lot of fun, because there are fewer constraints. The show doesn't have to be an hour or a half hour long. It can be whatever we want. And it's also very shareable. We make these bite-sized films. We've made more than 250 short films now since we've been around, and they get shared like crazy. We just did a film with Mayim Bialik, from The Big Bang Theory, who happens to be a neuroscientist. She has her PhD in neuroscience. And in fact, she advises on the set of The Big Bang Theory. And we made a short film that we just put on Facebook 2 weeks ago, and it has 2.5 million views. So, it's amazing to be able to reach audiences in this way with these little films and little stories that end up really having an impact on people and getting shared around.
One of the things that both Josh and I, in all the work that we do, we're always thinking about stories, right? Ultimately, all of this work is about stories. And when we think about introducing these people to the larger world, it's usually in the form of a story. And a story doesn't necessarily have to be super long. It can be something that tells you about that person and makes you interested in that person. It doesn't have to go on for an hour. So I think that creating the shorter films is in fact useful for the way people consume media now, because really most people are consuming media not through the television anyway. So we're targeting that, but at the same time, these little bite-sized stories are kind of what people are looking for. And in many instances, the people that we're interviewing aren't Mayim Bialik or Tom Schultz, so they're not already famous. So to ask someone to make a commitment for half an hour to watch a show about someone who they don't already know is a harder deal. But if you say, hey, you know what? This guy can explain string theory in 30 seconds, you're probably more likely to click through to that video. And then once you do, you've kind of opened up this rabbit hole of all these other pieces. Just a couple of weeks ago, my daughter was so excited. She texted me and said that she was following one of her friends on Facebook, and the girl had actually referenced the Mayim Bialik clip on Facebook. And my daughter was like, her mind was blown that somebody out there in the world actually knew something that her dad was involved with. It gave me some good credibility.
I noticed that the slate, at least of guests that I saw, was really quite a diverse group of people, diverse in all ways. And that's not necessarily reflective of what we think about when we think about STEM and about the kind of bars to entry that are often, that women have to face, that people of color often face, et cetera. So I'm wondering, is that a deliberate move on your guys' part? Do you have an aspirational part of what you're doing here to kind of model new realities?
Yes, and we say to people that the series is not necessarily reflective of the way the STEM world is now, but it's reflective of the way we'd like the world to be. So, for instance, this past 4th season, we had 16 subjects. 9 of them were women and 7 were men. And in the STEM field, that's not the proportion. There are many, many more men. We also had many people from people of color, people of different ethnic backgrounds. So part of what we're doing with the series is to show that diversity and hopefully inspire people, because you need to see someone who looks like you to make you interested in a subject. So maybe there'll be more kids who see the series, and a little girl might see a woman who can still be a woman and maybe even still be in the Miss America pageant, but can also have her PhD in biology and be doing research every day.
I would add to that more than anything, this morning we were actually on the phone talking about casting for season 5, which we're about to start shooting. And we were talking about who should we profile, and I think that more than anything, what we care about and what we want to present to people are stories and people that we think our audience should know about. People who are fascinating, whether they're famous or not, whether they're a man or they're a woman or a person of color. We want to tell great stories, and we want to present people that you should know about in addition to Kim Kardashian and Paris Hilton. So that's what we look for first and foremost, and ideally we also find that diversity as well.
I wanted to make a special thank you to our friends at the Arlington International Film Festival, without whom we wouldn't be getting to talk to you guys this morning, because you are the featured first night, opening night, October 22nd, I believe it is.
It's October 15th. We're really excited. It initially started by happenstance, which is that Alberto and April, who run the festival, used to be my neighbors, and we wound up talking. Alberto was very excited about the possibility of having some science content, specifically from NOVA, in the festival. And over the period of a couple of years, we wound up having the stars align, and we're thrilled. It's a great thing for us. We're going to have 7 of the scientists that are profiled in the series will actually be at the event on October 15th at the Kendall. And we're going to be doing some Q&A with those guys and also showing the films. And it made sense, you know, it's especially Josh and I still live in Arlington. Josh used to live in Arlington. The Kendall is right near MIT, where many of our subjects come from. Great hub of science and technology. So it really was like all the stars were aligned for October 15th at 7 o'clock at the Kendall.
And I think we should mention some of the scientists who are going to join us on stage.
Please do.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember all of them. There are 7, and I know that they include Steven Pinker from Harvard, Rudy Tanzi, who I believe is one of the Time Magazine 100 this year. Let's see.
And I know Tom Scholz will be there as well. I remember seeing that.
Tom Scholz from the band Boston will be there. I don't know if he's going to bring his guitar or not, but he's going to definitely speak about his life and about engineering.
And I believe that that the man who explained string theory in 30 seconds, will he be back to do that?
He
to
will.
do an encore, perhaps?
Jim Gates of Dartmouth. And also Miss Massachusetts will be there, Erica Ebel, who's a biochemist, and Colin Engel, who is the founder of iRobot and invented the Roomba vacuum cleaner, will join us on stage. And Jean Berko-Gleason from Boston University, who's a very well-known linguist, psycholinguist, and very entertaining person, will be there with us.
It does seem in general like a very happy confluence, not only that brought the two of you together in this series, but that then brings the series as part of the Arlington International Film Festival to our own backyard. So we very much appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with us today. We look so forward to October 15th. And we wish you the very best with your 5th season.
Thank you. I'd love to just add one thing, which is
absolutely.
We're so excited to be going into our 5th season, and I wanted to thank, of course, the people at NOVA and at WGBH for continuing to support the series and to distribute it and to make sure that it's reaches a great audience. And also our new funder, Winton Capital, who came in and funded the 5th season. We're really excited about continuing the series, and we thank them for allowing that to continue.
Well, best of luck to you guys, and I will see you on October 15th. And everybody else, of course, is invited as well to the Kendall on October 15th at 7 p.m. for that, and for the following week, full of films of the same kind of fascinating variety that we have grown used to over the 4.5 years, or 5 years now, of the film festival's existence. So on behalf of Tom Miller in the studio and Joshua Seftel, thanks again for joining us. Their series is The Secret Life of Scientists and Engineers. I am James Milan. Thanks for joining us.